What's up, everybody? This is Marty Friedman for Gear Factor. Let's get right into the questions. What was the first riff or song that made me want to play guitar? Can't really pinpoint a song, but it was definitely on the Kiss Alive album. I wanted to play this lick. Ace Frehley lick is what I really wanted to play. And there was another one of his on that same album that I definitely wanted to play as well. You know, just the way he put those into those songs, and they repeated so many times, it just felt so fun. And so those were the ones that, before I started playing guitar, those were the licks that made me want to play. All right, so what was the first riff that you ever learned? I believe it was from a Rush song called Bacchus Plateau, which I have absolutely no idea what sounds like now. So I'll go into some of the riffs that I was playing around that time. I loved all the Ramones songs, and one of the very first ones that I remember playing was I Don't Want to Go Down to the Basement. Liked all the Ramones songs, and I played the first song to the last song on every Ramones record that I had, and really developed the stamina and the chord, you know, the chords at the very early stages of my playing. So the Runaways had like these riffs that I really wanted to learn, and I was a big fan of the Runaways, and one of my favorite riffs they had was this. It used to freak me out when I was a little kid that every other time they changed the riff a little bit. Why did they bother to do that little change? It doesn't really change the riff very much. That's a very kind of thrash metal way to play guitar. There's like a riff and it changes a little bit, just a little bit each time. It kind of adds something, but not really a big thing. But I just wondered why those chicks even bothered to change it that little. It was just so weird to me at the time, but the riff was so cool. So that was like one of the first riffs that I remember playing. I had a guitar teacher for about 1 year, maybe a little bit less than a year. And he was a good teacher named Tim Brooks, but he wanted to teach me things other than what I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn punk rock and hard, loud music, and he was kind of more into teaching me, I don't know what it was, more theoretical type of things, and I don't know what he was trying to teach me, but he was a good guy. I do remember two things, very important advice things that he gave me. One was, every time you get an exercise done, every time you play it correctly, give yourself a reward by doing a bong hit. That was his advice. And I took that advice very seriously for some time. And then I realized that all I really succeeded in doing was eating a lot of Cheetos and stuff like that. Didn't really help my guitar playing too much. His other advice, which I will never forget, was I came into my guitar lesson wearing a ring, and it was like this ruby ring, kind of a real visual looking ring all of a sudden, and he looks at me like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Looks like you raided your mother's jewelry box. And I was so incredibly embarrassed, because he was right. I took it right out of my mom's jewelry box. And from then on, I've had a very strict policy: no rings, no bracelets, all that stuff. And it was because of him. So Tim Brooks, thank you very much. Were there any techniques you struggled with early on, like hammer-ons, tremolo picking, alt picking, sweep picking, pinch harmonics, all that stuff? Thankfully, I never really got into any techniques. I just learned songs, and I learned how to play riffs and solos and melodies and parts and stuff like that. So it never really got into like, okay, today we're going to work on alternate picking or anything like that. I never got into that. But the biggest problem I had at the beginning was so bad that I almost gave up guitar because it was so impossible to do, was this chord that happens in the Ramones. A-form bar chord. I could not hold the finger down for the thing. That one was no problem, but when it came to this third finger just would not hold down the strings. It just would not do it, and it hurt so incredibly bad. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not cut out for guitar, because there's just no way my finger's gonna do it. And then one day, it just happened. I did it. It was the weirdest thing. It was like, okay, that's easy now. But up until that day, it was like friggin' impossible. So that was the only thing that I really, really struggled with. And, as far as the other techniques go, I've come a long way without ever having to do any of that stuff, luckily. What were your favorite Riffs songs to play when you first started playing guitar? Okay, I'll think of a couple of them. One of my favorites was Mr. Speed from Kiss. So cool, so fun to listen to. When I eventually learned how to play it, I'm like, yeah, that's a cool riff. The other one was one that my guitar teacher taught me. It was called Cities on Flame by Blue Oyster Cult, if I can remember it. Loved Blue Oyster Cult back in the day. I really wanted to learn the solo In Strange Ways by Ace Frehley and Kiss, but there was no way I was going to learn that because it was just too incredibly cool. And so I wound up learning what at the time I wasn't terribly into, but this was one song that the guitar teacher at the junior high school was teaching everybody. My friend had that class and I learned it from him. So maybe this is the first solo that I ever attempted to learn. If I can try to play it, I think I might be able to remember the melody. It's More Than a Feeling by Boston. Maybe kind of. Eventually I learned to love that song and the entire album, but at the time I was more into punk rock and harder stuff and things like that. What are your favorite riffs of my own, in my own music? Actually, in my own music, I don't really have tons of riffs. It's much more melodies, but let's see if I can think of some riffs that I had. I always liked the riff in Hyperdoom. What else we got? Also Stigmata Addiction is one that I like. Forbidden City from Dragon's. Yeah, so those are some that pop off the top of my head, but yeah, there's more melodies than riffs in my music. And finally, what was the first riff that you came up with in your band? My very first band was called Deuce, and one of the first riffs that I came up with was called I Killed You, and my friends in Deuce might remember this. I don't know if I'm playing it right, but it was something like this. Something like that. Well, there you have it. Gear Factor, thanks for having me. It was good fun trying to remember this stuff, and hope to see you guys really soon. Bye.